being a student or a fresh grad, I think there's a lot of pressure there. Do you feel a lot of pressure? You know, you probably hear things from people who have been a little stodgy out in the workforce a long time saying, oh, you've got it easy right now, enjoy the time. And you're thinking, no, I'm making these earth-shattering career decisions. I am picking my major, I'm picking my first job, and that's gonna set my career path for the rest of my life. This stuff's weighing heavily. And I know that you also hear this stuff about your generation, so let's just talk about it openly, because I know we've all, you're like, no, I have not heard that. You hear that stuff about how, oh, you know, the millennials or Gen Z, if they've gotten that far to recognize it, that you're entitled, or that you want a participation trophy for everything you do, or that you're on Snapchat all day long, so how would you ever actually get work done? You know, those kinds of things. And it's really frustrating because you're thinking, I'm a high achiever, I'm gonna work really hard, and it's frustrating that all these stereotypes are out there. And I'll share from the experience of having been there, just let all that stuff roll off your back. I'm categorized in Gen X, and I'll tell you, I heard all the same stuff. It was, you're the slacker generation. It was, all you want to do is watch MTV music videos. And it was, you'll never get a job with that crazy pink hair. Thanks, Cyndi Lauper, for the crazy pink hair. And you know, the thing is, in your career, those stereotypes aren't going to define you. The way that you show up at the office, the way that you show up at work is really what's going to define you. So decide who you want to be, how you want to show up, and how you want to be known at work, and that's really what will be most defining. Think of the things that bring out your best, and I'll tell you, we have a real negativity bias just built into us naturally, where you think about all these things you need to fix, about what's broken about you, or what's broken about your generation, and how you have to show up for the world. And I have memories back at least to third grade, maybe even earlier, about things I was trying to fix about myself, and I can trace them to my career and where they kind of did me wrong. And I think you can fast track this and get around a lot of it. So Mrs. Maltagliati, she was my third grade teacher, my favorite teacher ever. She was sweet and warm. She had a mnemonic device for everything. I still think of things that she taught, like when I want to spell dessert instead of desert, I go, there's a strawberry shortcake in that, 2 S's, all from Mrs. Maltagliati. She had us do this thing. Check this out. I brought my me book. This is my book from third grade. A little tattered. It was like a documentary of what was going on. We wrote things, we drew things, and one of the things in here is this happy thoughts list. So I made this happy thoughts list. It was supposed to be a top 10. I made mine 11 because I was a nonconformist. And the number one, already in third grade, number one item is happy thoughts came from getting A's on my report card. My teachers didn't instill that in me. My parents didn't instill that in me. That was just one of those weird things that came from in here. Santa Claus was number 9. That's kind of a weird priority set as a third grader. Well, here's what that did though. Mrs. Maltagliati's class, although she was my all-time favorite teacher, there were many days when I despised going to that class. Sounds kind of strange. How could that happen? It was because of my nemesis, penmanship. So we had this penmanship lesson. It was a whole subject. We got a grade on the report card for it, and I couldn't surpass a B grade. See, I'm left-handed, and we had to write in cursive, and you had to slant your letters a certain way, and it was really difficult. So I would try practicing. I would slant my, twist my hand around. I'd twist my paper around. I'd twist my hand and my paper around, and nothing would work. I practiced so many hours, and I would still get B's. But my number one happiness factor was getting straight A's on the report card. I ended up practicing dozens of hours, then hundreds of hours. And when I look back and I think about what I do today for a career, I run this company, lead through strengths. All I talk about is bringing out your natural talents at work, your strengths at work on the job. And what I see over and over again is exactly what was happening to me in 3rd grade. Almost every team I meet, it's filled with people who are trying to fix what's wrong with them, who are trying to get past the B. And when they put all of their career development effort into themselves, they're focusing on their weaknesses instead of focusing on their strengths. So I have a few pieces of advice that I wish I had known when I was in school, and that really kicks them all off, especially the first one, which is notice what works. So really be intentional. This sounds like common sense. Notice what works in your life, notice what works with you, notice what you're great at. There's actually academic research that backs this up as well. When you're deciding where you're going to invest your time, whether it's fixing your weaknesses or building your strengths, they did this study at the University of Nebraska. And they took subjects and they subjected them to a speed reading test. And then after the speed reading test, they put them into 2 categories. And they either deemed them average readers or naturally talented readers. And the average readers, first time through, I'm going to make this stage like a bar chart, 90 words per minute. The average people could read 90 words per minute. The above average group, just coming in cold, could read 350 words per minute. So they were significantly better just coming in off the streets. Now here's where it gets really cool. Then they said, okay, now we're going to offer training, same training to both groups, and we're going to see what the gains are in both categories. And after the training, this average group, they went from 90 words per minute to 150 words per minute. And just like what will happen to you at work, you can work on your weaknesses or your average areas, and you'll get some gains. You can become competent in your weaknesses if you put some practice toward it. The magic, though, is when you look at this group that already started at 350, they were already better than the others after they were improved. They improved with the same training to 2,900 words per minute. Same training. It was a 66% increase for this group. It was an 828% increase for the other. So think about that throughout your career. If you'll notice what works from today forward, while you're a student or while you're early in your career, and you're thinking about what am I great at and how can I nurture more of that, the gains that you can get throughout your career if you're focused on it the whole time instead of way later, is pretty significant for you. So that's a huge one. So number 1, notice what works. Second one, it sounds kind of like Kippies. It's almost like we got together beforehand. It must have been this connection because we've known each other for many years and haven't seen each other in like a decade. It's about relaxing. Your career path is going to be windy. So a lot of people think, okay, career. I've got my major, I got my first job, it's really important that I pick the right thing because I'm gonna take the first job and then I'm gonna get a promotion and then I'm gonna get a promotion and then I'm gonna get a promotion, and it's gonna be this linear, straight line. And I'll tell you, week after week after week, I meet with people who share their career experiences and find that they've had a lot of success with a whole lot of windiness. So when you guys invited me into this PCMA event, it was this, well, talk to us about your career and how you got there. My career has been really windy. Started off as a school teacher, teaching English and PE. And actually it was one of those, oh, well that's actually not it. That's not what I thought it was gonna be like. And so instead of the trajectory like that, it was like, whoop, okay, that's not it, what next? Then I took a job in sales, and I went over here, totally different corporate role. Loved it, the idea of it. There were some issues with the company, went out of business 9 months later. Okay, that one's not it either. Now what? Go to financial services. I did mutual fund investing for a while. Then I got into a training and development department and thought, ooh, this is really cool. So I had some not it, then got really excited about learning and development. Then thought, well, I want to see what it's like to go work for a big company. So lateral move over to a big company with 130,000 employees. then wanted to see what's it like at a small company. So move over here to a small company with 35 employees. I've been a manager, I've been an executive, I've been in marketing, I've been in sales, I've been in learning and development, I've been in HR. Are you getting dizzy yet? And it seems like if you looked at all of those random things, you would think they're not related. And I hear people have a lot of angst about, well, I don't want to start over. Changing careers, it's like starting over. It creates a lot of effort. And it's not necessarily like that. Every experience you're getting, you're building business acumen, you're learning something, you're becoming a different and deeper human. So use those experiences and be okay with them. So that first one, notice what works and be watching that as a trend throughout your career. The second one is relax about this stuff a little bit, because career paths are windy. So don't get too worried about it if you're not sure of what it's going to look like today. And then the third one, I'll get a little controversial here. It'll sound like I'm going completely opposite of what Kippy said. It is to watch the word passion with caution. You're going to get a lot of advice from a lot of different people about following your passion. And it might be the number one thing that I hear people struggling with at work. There's a lot of angst. Have you heard that quote, find the work you love and you'll never work a day in your life? It sounds really cool, and it is really cool if that happens. I don't meet very many people who actually do. What I meet constantly are people who go, I haven't found that one thing yet. And I'm 30 and I haven't found it. I'm 40 and I haven't found it. And people get really worked up about it. And so I say loosen up about this word, passion. If you have it and you know it and you're chasing a role around it, great. For those of you who are getting the angst about the word passion, look at it like this. Broaden the bucket into this big giant pool of stuff you love, stuff you enjoy. If it brings you energy, make a note about it. If it sounds like fun, make a note about it. Whether it's a small thing or a big job, and make that one big bucket of possibilities. Most people don't have one single passion. They have a lot of things that they're into. And then start narrowing from there. So make sure when you narrow down, you're thinking of, now, what about the things that you could really be gifted in? Because if you go back to that research I was talking about, where the gains could be 828% when you invest in your gifts, I'll give you an example. When I was 18, if you asked me, what's your one passion? And this should be, what you go do with your career. I would tell you, I should go be a pro beach volleyball player then. Because I was totally obsessed with volleyball, and especially pro beach volleyball. The thing is, though, it was a passion, but now let's talk about whether you're gifted at something. I was good, I was a starter, I was a captain of a team, so it was like, okay, I was solid, but look at me, I'm 5'4", and I can't jump out of the sand. I've never blocked over the net a single time out of the sand, and I lived in St. Louis where there isn't any sand. That could be a problem too. So these things are practical things you want to think about with your career. It's not just passion alone. If you can put your gifts behind something you enjoy, then you're talking about something someone will pay you for. You don't want to pay me to be a pro beach volleyball player. You can do another one where, okay, you're narrowing, you have this big bucket of interest, and then you narrow it down to areas where you could be gifted. And in this category, I could still have contenders. Things like, I love to run a chainsaw. I do. It sounds totally weird, but me and a chainsaw on a weekend, one of my favorite things to do. And I could even say I'm gifted at it because I can see a big scrubby tree and I have a way of seeing what form it could be. It's like seeing the inner potential in this tree if I lift the understory beautifully. But now let's talk about, do I really want that as a job for my life? So you've got, what do you love, the big bucket. You've got, what could you be gifted in? And then the last one is narrow down to, let's talk about the practicalities of a job. It's easy to romanticize what you think a role is going to be like. Oh, I love chainsawing on the weekend. But if I think about that as a career, Well, some people actually have trees that are really tall, and I'd have to be strapped to a harness all the time, and do I really want the safety risk of that? Or let's talk about the fact that we live in Texas and it's 110 degrees in the summer, and that safety gear would be really hot, because I know right now when I do it for a hobby, I don't do it in the summer. So those are the kinds of things when it comes to passion, is broaden the bucket to the things that you really love and enjoy, then start narrowing down to things that would be your gift, and then get out there and start talking to people about the practicalities of a job and find out, what is that role really like day to day? And then you'll find out if you are romanticizing it or if it really is what you thought it would be. So number 1, you've got notice what works. Number 2, you've got relax, career paths are windy. And number 3, you have this last one on passion. Just be cautious of that word, passion. Now, with all of that said, coming back to the umbrella to close this out, the umbrella of using your strengths to make you a stronger performer as you're out in the workforce. This all comes from your natural talents, just those natural patterns of thoughts and feelings and behaviors that are unique to you, that are different from everybody else. These are difficult to spot. So it reminds me of a trip I took to Bratislava, Slovakia. I was doing an event there, and I'm on the way to the event, and I'm noticing as I'm driving down the city that these cars are double parked, double parked, double parked. And as I see it, I'm thinking I need to go into the store before I get to my event, and I better not do that, because what if someone comes in behind me and goes shopping for an hour? What in the world is going on around here? Surely, because the first thought was, are they a bunch of rude people blocking each other in? And then you think, no, of course, that couldn't be it. So you get really curious, what could this be? And I get to the office where I'm delivering this event, and I asked, hey, how does this work here? I noticed all these cars, they park like this. If you go in for 10 minutes and someone needs to go in for an hour, what do you do? And he said, oh, we have a parking shortage here in Bratislava, and the way that we fixed it and worked it out is that you leave your car in neutral. Luckily, it's very flat there, and they all drive standards, so it works out. And if you come out of the store and you're blocked in, you take this car that's in your way and you push it out with your hands. Yeah, you do. You push it out with your hands, and then you drive away, and then you push it back where it came from, and then it's in the front spot. And that's how they self-manage this issue. So clever. And then he said, that's funny that you say it, because the first time I visited Texas, I went to a store, and I thought to myself, those cars are parked so far apart. If they would only squish closer together, they could fit so many more cars in the parking lot. How rude. And then we talked about how we do that to give each other breathing room and not ding doors. And it's so much like that at work and in your career. You are so familiar with your own patterns. If any of you have traveled internationally, you've had this experience where you realize, I have so many assumptions, I didn't even know I had those assumptions. And you realize, not everyone thinks like I think. And in reverse, you have to do this same thing with your talents, where you really take notice as if you're exploring everyone else's mind, like they're all in different mind countries, and you listen for those moments when they say, how did you come up with that idea? Or, oh, you're so good at that. And you take notice of those and go, okay, there's something there that I'm doing that's coming easy to me, and it's not easy to other people. Notice those things. So in that last story, it's really a way to bring together the concept of using your strengths, be on watch for them. They're so innate to you, they're not easy to spot. So you really have to watch them throughout your career so that you can put them to good use. So with that, I hope that you'll leave here feeling at least a little more inspired to learn what your talents are, fall in love with them, because sometimes that's hard to do as well, and then live them out on the job every day. So with that, good luck as you claim your talents and share them with the world. Thanks.